Hi YouTube, it's me Sharia, and I am doing a collab with a couple of other YouTubers on the worst financial advice ever taking. So, followed, believed. Um, so, I'm just gonna jump right in. Um, in 2004, I wrecked my car. I had a 2002 Infiniti G20 that my stepdad bought me because I was in college. And I came home in 2004, and we had a snowstorm, ice storm actually, and I was driving in that ice storm, and I wrecked my car, completely totaled. And so the car was paid off by the insurance, obviously, and the check was about $3,700. And I went to this mom and pop car dealership that, after the fact, I found out I had a bad reputation for selling bad cars. But I went to that mom and pop dealership, and I got a truck. It was a 2000 and maybe one. It might have been a 2000 or 2001 Ford Explorer. The truck was only worth maybe $6,500, but they were selling it for 13 or 14.5, and I found that out after the fact. Not only were they charging me almost double, um the car was no good, and I'll tell you about that. And because my credit was not great, I was paying like a 29% interest rate on the loan. So I was almost paying for the car 2.5 times. That is not what makes the financial advice the worst. The fact that I bought the car. I'm sure everybody has gone through this. You go in, you buy a car, and they try and tell you that. So the payment. Okay, first of all, they they convinced me to put down the whole $3,700. So I put down. I put down 35. I kept $200 out of 37, obviously. So they convinced me to put the whole $3,500 down on the truck. But when you look at the paperwork, I was still buying the car for 13.5. That was the first part of bad financial advice I took, was that they convinced me to put down a down payment. The second thing was, and I'm sure all of you guys have heard this before. Oh, if you just skip one meal a day or don't go to the vending machine twice in a week, you can afford to pay $5 extra more. So the payment that they convinced me was gonna be uh $425 if I put the $3,500 down, although I was still financing the same amount. I wasn't financing 10,500 or $10,000. I was still financing $13,500. Yeah. So then, yeah, they convinced me that payment, that if I could just pay $5 more, I could pay off the car. I could finance the car for 3 years instead of 4 years. And so I listened, and I put the $3,500 down, the deposit down, and then I sacrificed a meal, a takeout meal or so a day, so that I could afford to pay for. Actually, the payment was like $452 to pay it off in 3 years, with like a 29.99 interest rate. And so I consider that to be the worst financial advice I've ever taken. For so many reasons. But what even makes it worse is that exactly 90 days after I drove the car off the lot, it broke down. Like, I started hearing this knocking in the engine, and so I took it to a mechanic who told me that all these parts were not even on the engine, and that they didn't understand how I bought the car because all these lights were on. All the lights on the dashboard that come on when you start the car were on the truck, but they dimmed the light. So I bought a lemon. And I was so pissed off. I stopped paying for the car, which messed my credit up even more. The car was repossessed. I took the owner of that lot to court, small claims court, but I did not win because I did not bring the mechanic who told me that the car was worth nothing. That is why it's the worst financial advice I've ever taken. Because I was completely out of $3,500. 3 months later, I was out of a whole truck. The truck was not even worth what I was financing. And on top of that, my credit got messed up and I had a repo on my credit. It was the worst financial advice I had ever taken. But I have since learned from it. I have purchased 2 cars since then, both Hondas, and I have never, 3 cars actually. I've never put anything down because from what I understand, after going through that horrible experience, I started talking to dealers and off the record, like not at a dealership, but like as I would come across car salesmen and dealers and stuff, I would ask questions. I started doing my own research, and I found that for every $1,000 that you put down on a car, it only decreases your payment by $5. Yeah, just 5. That's it. Then it's not necessary that you put money down. Never ever is it necessary. The banks will tell you how much they will finance you for. And if you can find a car within that amount, then that's great. When it comes down to putting money, it's because they will only finance you for $10,000 and you want a car that's $13,000. But in my case, the bank was financing the whole $13,000. Why did I still put down $3,500? It's because they actually charged me $16,500 for that car when it was only on sale. Like the big number on the dashboard was 13,500. It was horrible. It was a learning experience, to say the least. Now that I'm on a financial journey, hindsight is 2020, and I see a whole lot of other financial mistakes that I made, but still, in my opinion, even after being on my journey for over a year, I still consider that to be the worst financial advice I've ever taken. The worst that was like the worst thing I have ever spent my money on. Listening to that car salesman who convinced me. Now I will say I was young. I might have been 21, 22. But at 21 and 22, even being that naive to believe that a car salesman had my best interests in mind instead of his own, was very naive and young and immature and stupid. But like I said, since then I've learned from that mistake. I don't put money down now when I buy a car. I don't plan on ever buying another car after I pay off the car that I have, the 2 cars I have now. The next car I purchase will be with cash if I purchase another one. And at that time, I was not credit savvy. So, I mean, really, I could have had perfect credit and still listen to him tell me that, oh, because of my credit, I need to put such and such and such down. It was a huge learning event for me. And since then, I do my research now when I purchase a car. I am aware of what my credit is looking like and what I could possibly finance and all of that. So that's why that was the worst financial advice ever. Just listening to that man convinced me that I needed to put down the whole $3,500, and that if I just skip a meal or two in the vending machine once or twice a week, I could afford an extra $25 payment on what I already couldn't afford, because I really couldn't afford a $425 payment. So that was my worst financial advice ever taken. Aside from when I started college, my roommate said, everybody uses credit. Girl, just get you a credit card. And then once you get that credit card and you max it out, you put it on another credit card with zero interest and you transfer the balance. I'm not going to necessarily say that transferring to a 0% or transferring the balance to a credit card with a zero interest rate is bad financial advice, but just listening to her convinced me that everybody in college is using credit was kind of stupid on my part. And that is really where my credit story begins, is when I got to college and I got offered the credit cards. And because I didn't know anything about credit, I was hesitant, but she convinced me, and I saw her doing all the partying and paying for this and buying clothes, and so I took her advice. So that is the worst financial advice I've ever taken, and I can't wait to watch everybody else's horrible financial advice. And please, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel, thumbs up this video, watch any of the other ones, watch the ones in my subscription box, and share your worst financial advice ever in the comments or make your own video. Thanks. Bye. The first thing I would like to accomplish at the end of this year is paying off that last credit card. That credit card had a